Time is 7:54, and we begin with Administrative Committee meeting. And we will skip on to 2.1 since public comments were read already. 2.1, review and discussion of the 2021-2022 compensation plan.
Good evening, trustees.
Good evening, ma'am.
2.1 is review and discussion of the 2021-22 compensation plan. This is the plan that we had previously brought to the board for approval. I want to put this into context. This is like the little roadmap, right? It's the plan that informs our employees about their calendars, about their start and end dates, about how many days they're going to work. It informs what stipends we provide to the employees, and it also informs our employees and the public, and all of this is for public information as well, what our pay grades are and where our employees are placed in those pay grades. So it assists us in two ways. It assists us in communicating to new hires, and it assists us in communicating to our employees of what they can anticipate for this coming year. So in this plan, we have the new hire pay schedule for teachers. We have the administrative, the clerical, and auxiliary pay grades that list out what employees fall into each pay grade, the number of days, and what amounts that would total. I'll be noting a few changes as we go through the plan. On page 9, we have our counselor stipends. There was a question at the last meeting in regards to our counselors. We did do research on the counselors in the neighboring districts. The information was attached to this agenda item. And the research says that our counselors are being fairly compensated. They are in a higher pay grade, or one of the highest pay grades across the 4 districts. We also provide differentiated stipends for elementary, middle school, high school, and head counselor. Our counselors are 207 days, and in breaking down the the pay grade ranges, they get paid more than a teacher. So we feel that it's a fair compensation for our counselors.
Dr. Cruz, when you mentioned the days, all counselors are on a 207?
Counselors
All
are on
of them?
207.
Elementary, middle school, and high school.
Thank you for compiling this data for us. I did get a lot of feedback from other staff members about this specific issue that was brought up in that meeting. So I'm glad that we are fairly compensating our counselors, not more than the other staff or anything like that.
Thank you.
Can you elaborate just a little bit more? What pay grade are the counselors on?
Our pay grades are on a professional pay grade 3.
Okay.
They do receive stipends, elementary 500, middle school 1,500, high school 3,000, and head counselor 1,000.
Dr. Cruz, you mentioned that they're pretty comparable to what our teachers are earning, that they're earning more than some of our teachers. However, counselors have a master's degree. Not all teachers have a master's degree. Some of them do. Some of them even have their doctorate degree, right? However, the counselors, all of them have a master's degree, and the difference in the elementary was that they were being added more and more duties. Now that, with the GT program, and that they were having to test more kids, and it was taking up a lot of their time and having to test every single child. And so it was taking up a lot of time, so they were having to invest a lot of extra time after hours also. And so that was one of the reasons why we were looking into giving them more compensation if possible. And when we compare to Los Fresnos is a district that pretty much has the same enrollment that San Benito does. However, they have the $2,000 stipend, $2,500, and $3,000. So when you compare it to our elementary counselors, they're only getting a $500 stipend. The other difference between counselors and teachers as well is that counselors do work extra days. And so our teachers work less days unless they work summer school or extra programs, right? And so what is the plan to make it more comparable, if any?
So that was when I made the comparison between the teacher pay scale and the counselor's pay, that was based on the number of days that they worked. So when we break it down, 187 days, divided by the minimum of the teacher pay, and then 207 days for counselors. They are making more. The Los Fresnos teachers are on the teacher pay scale with those amounts. So, counselors, excuse me. Los Fresnos counselors are on the teacher pay scale, and San Benito's are on the professional pay grade.
I have a question because Ms. Lopez alluded to something that she's correct on, that counselors do have a master's degree. Don't we give them an additional stipend for having the master's degree as well? Is that correct?
We do, sir.
Okay.
So there's an additional stipend besides the 500 that they get for having their master's degree?
I believe we gave them the master stipend this past year. I believe it's 1,000.
Most districts have that additional stipend for a master's degree.
Is that done every year, ma'am? Okay.
These are yearly.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions on that?
I do have a question. Was there some data or something showing that they worked more days? Because I didn't see that. Where did we get that from?
In the compensation plan, they are listed in our administrative pay grade 3. If we're looking at the 21-22 pay scale, they're listed on page 2 on my copy. Okay. I don't know how mine would be
No, I
off,
was
but
going
yes.
based on what Ms. Lopez had said. That's why.
Oh,
I guess I'm trying to make sense of this, and it is what it is once again. But when you divide you're looking at teachers, and you're looking at how many days they work. So you look at the salary they make divided by the number of days. Now, maybe what you're alluding to, and I don't know, I don't want to insult your intelligence, but it maybe, that they work more days. And so you divide that number of days by their pay, and so what's the catch there as far as, is it competitive? Is it comparable to the teachers and the number of days versus the counselors and the number of days they work when you look at their daily rate?
right. Their daily rate is slightly above that of a teacher's daily
counselors.
rate. Mhm.
Okay.
And they work more days. And they receive stipends.
So to the point that Ms. Lopez made, yes, they do work more days, but they are compensated for those more days that they're working.
Yes,
So they're fairly compensated, in other words.
yes.
Very well, thank you, appreciate it.
I wouldn't say that they are compensated more. They're working more, right? They're working more days, so their pay is more, but they're working for it. So I wouldn't say it's.
Well, I
You
just
can
think,
justify saying that they're compensated more. They just work more days.
They work
Right.
more days.
I think the whole concept here, just to make sure that they're fairly compensated compared to our surrounding school districts for the amount of days that they work. I think that's what the premise of this whole conversation is. We've always tried to compete with our neighboring districts so we can retain our professionals here.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, appreciate it.
Dr. Cruz, one more thing before we go on. What other school districts were you able to compare these with? I know Brownsville, and I say Brownsville, in my opinion, we don't compare to Brownsville. Brownsville's huge. But, I mean, we've mentioned before that we're comparable to Los Fresnos, and I see that, and I did see that the stipends are more competitive in Los Fresnos. So did you reach out to Sherryland or any other school district that is indeed comparable to San Benito?
These are the 4 that we typically research because there are neighboring districts. If we lose teachers, it's usually to these districts. So I can very well look up all the districts or more districts if you'd like.
One thing that Region 1 recommended to us when looking at data, they told us to look at other districts that are fairly comparable to us. I think that you did a great job in comparing to our neighboring ones, because that's where our staff normally go to when they leave us. However, as per the recommendation of Region 1, looking at other districts like Sherryland and Rio Grande City, those will give us more comparable numbers because they have the same number of students that we have.
I'll be happy to
just-
do so, Ms. Lopez.
Thank you, ma'am. I know you will. You always do a great job.
Thank you. Okay, on page 9 as well, I just wanted to point out a change. Our eSports Club VMA stipend has been changed as per the director's request to $1,800. On page 10, please note that under teachers, academic stipends, teachers, at the last 2 lines of that first square, supply allotment, teachers and classroom paras, they get that $100 at the start of the year, which they are very grateful for. We are also including the teacher stipend for student attendance. That was newly added this year, and we're continuing that. We have the remainder of the stipends that have remained the same. On page 16, under other stipends, 3rd line, we've also added the COVID recovery stipend, which will be paid out in December.
You said page 16?
Oh,
I don't see that there.
my apologies. For some reason, my copy is off. So it's going to be where it says all other pay at the top. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cruz. Oh, I see. Okay, the PDF page is page 18.
What's the title that you're looking at? Is that the all
Under
other pay?
all other
substitute-
pay, the second yellow highlighted line says other stipends.
K-9
Second,
stipend, KSBG, COVID.
right there, COVID
Okay.
recovery stipend.
It
That will
does say
be,
page 16 on the bottom.
Okay, still can't find it.
thank you, Ms. Lopez.
Got it. Thank you.
COVID recovery stipend, that is new.
And that was what again, Dr. Cruz?
That will be paid to our employees in December for their efforts during COVID. Help them recover from the pandemic and, you know, the struggles throughout the year. Yes. Yes,
great
thank
thing that
you.
we're all-
Thank you for your general, if this gets approved, we're very excited about that. It's very generous of our board,
And that would be for all employees?
for all employees.
And where are the funds coming from?
Those are ESSER funds, which we'll discuss further in our agenda.
And that's for all the ones that fall under other stipends, or just that one, COVID?
Just that one
Just that
line.
one. Okay.
COVID recovery.
I actually think that's CARES Act. ESSER
Oh,
1.
my apologies, CARES Act. Thank you. Then on the next page, 2 pages over, we have the San Benito CISD longevity stipend. This is new this year. This is for full-time employees. They'll receive a specified amount based on their completed years of continuous service in San Benito CISD. This will be paid out in September in an annual lump sum. A new hire to 5 years will be paid $500. Over 5 years to 9 years, $750. 10 or more years, $1,000. This is based on years of service. Full-time employees are eligible. Employees must be employed with the district at time of disbursement. Employees hired by September 17th will qualify, and that lump sum will come in September.
And this is for all employees across the board.
All employees.
And then also, it's paid out in September, so it would be completed the year before. So if
Yes.
I completed my sixth year, then I would be getting $750 in
Exactly.
September. Okay. This is great.
How many years they have completed.
So a teacher with 0 years, a brand-new teacher, will not receive that stipend until the following year, correct? Or no?
No.
So a teacher you hire right now in July or August, come September, the disbursement is gonna be, they're gonna get a $500 disbursement just for signing on?
No, well, Dr. Carmen?
Right, so the way it's proposed is new hire through 5 years of experience. So yes, sir, if we hire somebody this summer to begin next school year, they're employed as of September 17th, 2021, they would qualify for that lowest tier, $500. And not just teachers, any employee.
And these funds that are being used are ESSER funds?
ESSER 3, yes.
ESSER 3. Again, we thank you for your generosity. On the next page, we have the teacher incentive allotment. This is new this year. This is part of House Bill 3 that the government provided funds towards compensation increases for educators. The intent of the teacher incentive allotment is to reward, recruit, and retain. It allows a realistic path for teachers in our state to earn a $100,000 salary. And through this plan, teachers are designated as recognized exemplary or master teachers, and our local system includes K through 12 core teachers. We have a breakdown of how those funds would be dispersed. 65% would go to the teacher, 25% would go to other. That breaks down to 15% team, 10% campus, and then 10% goes to support the initiative. If a teacher is national board certified, 90% would go to the teacher and 10% would go to support the initiative. And this includes the verbiage of what should happen if a teacher leaves the district. If a teacher leaves the district prior to August 15th, then the district will provide the payout to the teacher with their last paycheck. If the teacher retires after the winter roster submission, then TIA funds would be provided to the designated teacher prior to his or her last day of service. And if the designated teacher retires after winter roster submission, then no TIA funds will be provided to the teacher, and that's because no funds would be generated or calculated.
So I have a question, Dr. Cruz. We have plans for what if we have a teacher with the San Benito CISD who is in this program and decides to leave the district? Do they automatically lose that amount, or does it depend on whether the receiving district is also participating in the teacher incentive allotment, and does that follow them?
So for our district, if they leave prior to 8/15, then the district will provide the payout to the teacher. So wherever they go, it's dependent on how they run their plan. So when we receive a teacher, they're adopted into our plan. Even if we move a teacher from one campus to another, or if they select to move, that amount is recalculated based on that campus. And that's just how the TIA grant works.
And this TIA allotment, or the amount that the teachers receive, is done on a yearly basis? It's not within a time span of 4 or 5 years?
No.
It's yearly?
It's yearly.
Okay.
And 21-22 school year is our data capture year. So we'll be working with NWEA MAP and working with our K through 12 teachers and any national board or those seeking national board certification in regards to those payouts. This past spring, I presented to all the campuses about the teacher incentive allotment, and they're welcome to ask any questions throughout the year, and we'll be sharing additional information as the year goes on. Okay, then the following pages are the calendars for our employees. It provides for what calendar they're on, whether they're on a 187-day calendar, 197, et cetera. It also provides the start and end dates and a list of employees that belong in each of those calendars. So we're asking for this to be an agenda item on the regular agenda.
So once again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but now I'm looking at these last 2 pages. You've got the certified. No, we're looking at the calendar, and under the 207 days. Never mind, I just found it. I answered my own question. Thank you.
It's okay.
This becomes an agenda item. The next one, 2.2, review and discussion of revisions to BED local policy.
Yes, BED local was revised May 18th by the board. When I submitted it to our policy consultant at TASB, She responded with a recommendation, and so we're bringing that recommendation to you, whether you accept it or not, that is the board's decision. She sent us their model language about special meetings. Special meetings, at all other board meetings, public comment shall be limited to items on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. The language that we had up under regular meetings is moved down, so nothing has changed. It still allows for comment on any agenda item. It just addresses special board meetings. So that's at the board's discretion. I was bringing it to you because our policy consultant recommended that.
I read that recommendation from the consultant, and now question being on these meetings that we're having today, the committee meetings, are we considered that we're in a special meeting? Are committee meetings special meetings, Dr. Carmen?
That's a really good question, sir. And I think it would be wise of us to have our general counsel review this and make sure that we indicate the committee meetings. It would make sense, I think, to consider them as special meetings. And I think certainly we could accept the verbiage in here to include them as special meetings. But I think we might want to be clear and delineate. I'm guessing TASB, not every district uses committee meetings as we do. So TASB probably just sent us the recommended language based on what all districts do, not I guess, recognizing our committee meetings. So I would recommend that we refer this to our general counsel between now and the regular meeting. And if we need to clearly designate committee meetings as one or the other, that we do so. Either as regular meetings and follow that procedure, or special meetings and follow that procedure.
I concur with that. Want to make sure how we're designating committee meetings to make sure that there were changes to the public commentary provisions in the 2019 legislative session and HB 2840. And I would recommend that we go ahead and review that specifically.
I noticed also on page 1 of BED, the revisions here, it shows that it's deleting the area where it says that each agenda item, a speaker shall be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to make comments. So that's another thing that's being removed, and so that's another thing that we need to look at as a board as well, as to if there's going to be a limitation on the comments that are going to be presenting as well.
One of the, if I may, Dr. Cruz and Dr. Carmen, again, if I remember the language of that email that came from that TEA consultant, one of the things that I liked about the recommendation was if we have a large number of people wanting to come in to do public comment, then we, the presiding officer, or me as board president, would have the option to maybe reduce that 3-minute limit to a smaller time frame so that we could entertain more. The other recommendation that I would think, and this is for you, Mr. Weller, would it be possible to revise this language on BED local to where we actually have a limit on how many individuals can address the board on any given occasion?
That's a good question, Mr. Board President. And as this meeting's been going on, I've been looking at some of the guidance on the changes that have affected BED local. The board can create rules, reasonable rules pertaining to the discussion terms that are the periods that are afforded to members of the public. And of course, I think the attitude of the board and the attitude of the whole district, the administration, is to allow every citizen an opportunity to speak. And so as to that specific question, I think we need to look and see if the Attorney General has issued any guidance on that point. My initial review is that the AG has not, but there are general parameters where you can create rules, reasonable rules for the limitation of the times that folks can speak. And I think obviously, again, everybody wants to allow everyone an opportunity as best you can within the time periods that you have.
So, I have an idea. I don't know how feasible it is, or even if it meets the legal qualifications for public comment. Is there, when we go back to allowing the public into the boardroom and things like that for recognitions and stuff, is there a way that we can do the public comment before actually opening up the meeting, like a 30-minute, like, it's open, but maybe not everybody has to be here? Like, we will be here as a quorum?
I doubt that.
Isn't that something similar to what Harlingen has? They have a 30-minute,
Yeah, they had, I believe, public comment on agenda items, and they have a 30-minute period for non-agenda items, I think, total. But I don't recall if it was prior to the start of the meeting or not. I'm not sure that would match up with the Open Meeting Act requirement.
okay.
Dr. Berman, I would generally say that I think that it was probably, it might have been a portion at the beginning of the meeting, but it may not have been separate to the meeting.
Okay.
As far as public participation, yes. Would we satisfy that need by allowing only the agenda items during the meeting and an open forum before the meeting? I'm not going to split that here. That's not possibly, but I'll leave that to Mr. Weller.
Yeah, for right now, it's fine, because we're not open to the public, but I'm just saying, like, instead of the meeting running long when we have the students in here and parents like that, something, I guess, like open the meeting up for public comment and then open it up for the actual agenda items, but that's something we can discuss later. Right now, it's not an issue because we don't have that.
Right now, the thing that is important, and thank you for that information, but I just want to make sure that we do look into limiting the time, right? The time frame for each speaker per item. And if Harlingen limits it to 30 minutes, would that be an idea that maybe our district would want to do? So that way we're not here an hour hearing public comments. So we'll refer that to Mr. Weller and see what's the best advice that he can give us.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think the language from TASB, Mr. Weller, is under meeting management, where it kind of gives that discretion. I think that Mr. Moreno was referring to as the presiding officer, where he can make adjustments, establish an overall time limit for public comment, and adjust the time allotted to each speaker. It's just not, it's not specific. So if one night we have 200 people that want to come in, I think he can make it more confined if needed. So I guess the question is, do you want to leave it to the presiding officer or set specific parameters?
I don't have the answer right now as well. So right now, the way it's written on this committee meeting, it's up for an agenda item. And we can always come back and continue to revise as we go.
Yes, sir, or we could work on this and bring it back at a subsequent meeting if we don't think we're going to have it as we want it in a week. There's no rush. I mean, it's open back up for the public to speak on any item. So either we could put it on the agenda with the recommendations from Mr. Weller, or we could bring it back to the next committee meeting with some refinements and some options possibly.
I motion to table it for now, leave it as it is for now, table this, and bring it back.
Until the July committee meeting.
Yeah, until we, the July, have all our
And the fact is, it's already, like Dr. Carmen said, we already have public comment. It's available. They're going to continue to do so. And any type of editing that we need to do to the policy will be forthcoming. So let's just keep it as is. Right?
Yes, so I motion to table.
So actually, it's just to not place the agenda item on
Correct.
the regular board meeting. Okay, 2.3, review and discussion of the Educational Experience Affiliation Agreement, MOU, between San Benito CISD and the University of Texas at Rio Grande Valley.
Thank you. This is an agreement between UTRGV and San Benito so that we can host student teachers. Unfortunately, UTRGV was not able to get it to us in time for this meeting. So we can either, put it on the agenda in hopes that they get it back. They said they would have it back by Friday. It was seen by Mr. Weller and then sent to them for their attorney review. They have probably a much lengthier process than we do to get that reviewed.
So, Mr. Weller, you have seen the actual MOU?
Yes, I have. Yes, sir.
So the fact that it might be provided to us in a timely manner would be okay then to say that we can make it an agenda item?
Yes, sir. To the extent that the UTRGV's council has comments, we can endeavor to get those answered and resolved very quickly to present this to the board at the upcoming meeting, and we'd be pleased to do that. So assuming we get any comments back from them in advance of the meeting, I think we might be able to keep it on and tackle it at the upcoming meeting.
And if for
Thank you, Mr.
any
Weller.
reason, then we can just table it at that point if we don't have the documents that they need to give us.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for
So this
understanding.
becomes an agenda item?
Yes, and Dr. Cruz, I want to thank you for looking into this.
Thank
I
you
know I
for
brought
bringing
it.
that up. I kept wondering why we weren't, they were just coming to do observations, and so thank you for shedding that light. They said we needed to update our agreement, so.
Yes, thank you.
We're happy to host them. We're happy to host student teachers.
Yes,
because
hopefully
it's
future
great,
Greyhound teacher.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Ms. Lopez, for understanding about this agenda item.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's your job.
okay.
Next is 2.4.
2.4, review and discussion of board policy update 117.
So update 117, so TASB Policy Services recommends updates to our policy manual. They have sent us this policy update 117 to address a couple of things. Due to the winter storms that we've all experienced and all the, changes in calendars, they felt that there was flexibility needed in some of these items. So this is where these are stemming from. The first local policy is CH Local. This delegates authority to the superintendent to contract for replacement, construction, or repair of equipment and facilities in the event of a catastrophe, emergency, or natural disaster affecting the district. The superintendent must report to the board any contracts made under the delegated authority at the next regular board meeting. So this is being brought to our board. The version that is uploaded is the red line copy that shows a comparison. Then there are what seemed like many copies of additional policies. That's because CH Local, I asked them to revise it based on our threshold of 25,000. So it does not show in the comparison copy, it's on a separate copy. I just wanted the board to feel confident that that was being considered and noted and would be in our policy.
Mr. Weller, do you see any concerns or any feedback that you think you need to give us? On
These are
CH?
standard, yes, not to cut you off, ma'am, sorry about that. These are standardized TASB policy updates. We can review them in detail and confer with the board and report to the board regarding specific portions of them, if any of them are of concern to you. But, it's TASB update 117, meaning it's the 117th policy update recommended by the Texas Association of School Boards. So generally speaking, it's going to be standardized universal changes across these policies to either reflect legislative changes, and I know that some of these are in reflection of some of the changes that have been implemented during the 2021 session. But generally speaking, these are updates that will be incorporated by most, if not all, school districts.
Dr. Cruz and Mr. Weller, I'm looking at the packet, and after the pages that give us the explanatory notes, there's the policy action list, and then we continue with some more policy action list. When we look at CH Local that you made reference to, I do have that because I printed it out among, with what was provided to us on BoardWorks, or BoardWorks, right? Board Docs. BoardWorks is something totally different. So I'm looking at CH Local, and on page 1 of 2, it says the board delegates to the superintendent the authority to make budgeted purchases for goods or services. However, any single budgeted purchase of goods or services that costs, and it 50,000, it still says 50,000 on there.
Okay, so
So-
if you're looking at the comparison packet, it does state that. There is a version that's uploaded, just singleton. I think there's a PDF and a Word document. It says 50, $25,000. So
Okay,
that
I just wanted to make
is
sure
going
that
to
that
be
wasn't a
changed.
typo. Thank you, ma'am.
On the packet that they gave us, it has the 50,000 marked off and it has 25,000.
Yeah. So it's computerized, TASB sends it, it's done via computer, they send out a standard comparison packet, and I made recommendations to be uploaded for you, and when we submit that to our policy consultant, we'll note those changes again to make sure they're in there. Then CV Local, this aligns with CH Local. It pretty much delegates to the superintendent for emergency contracting. Again, that amount will be updated to $25,000. So there's a note that was added to that policy, just referring us back to CH Local. Then we have DEC Local. DEC Local. The events of the past year highlighted the need for flexibility in leave policy. TASB is recommending the removal of administrative details so that we don't have to bring things back to the board every time something needs to change in case of an emergency. So I know there was reference in public comment about our leave and that those would be going away. Our practices right now are going to remain. They will not be housed in our policy anymore. They're going to be housed in our administrative regulations and any documents that we share. So, those processes will not change.
So if I may, it is a common practice across districts, though, that usually leave time is in half-day increments for
Yes.
professionals, and on hourly, it's
Yes,
based on the
and
number of hours.
that's going to remain the
That's just
same.
standard.
And so, one thing to note is, and there's no reason for alarm, at the end of this policy, on page 7 of 8, where it talks about payment for accumulated leave upon retirement, that was a change to our policy not too long ago. They've reordered items. Everything is still there. The employee must be retiring under the teacher retirement system. The employee's retirement is voluntary. They're not being discharged or non-renewed. The employee has at least 30 years of service with the district, with 10 consecutive years of service with the district. So that will be in there. So information that is taken out will be in our employee handbook and other items that we post to our website and share out with our staff. Again, there is a corrected version to that policy. And so update 117, this item is an agenda item.
Dr. Cruz, did you say one of them was CV Local?
CH, CV, and DEC Local.
Okay, because I don't have a copy of CV Local, so if
CV,
somebody,
it's listed in the comparison packet with the $50,000. Then it should be a singleton, perhaps a PDF and a Word version that was supposed to have been uploaded, and that will be corrected to say 25,000.
okay. So, Dr. Carmen, if I can get a copy of that. You have it on the book?
I actually made a new book, so I did, it is on there. It's actually 2 pages before you get to the next agenda item. Do you have it?
No?
You are asking about CV Local, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. That's okay, we can move on.
And that's an agenda item.
2.5. Okay, that's an agenda item. 2.4 becomes an agenda item, and then we have 2.5. Review and discussion of resolution of board regarding ESER 3 and policy CB Local, state and federal revenue services.
Yes, this is a resolution to address the ESSER funds, and part of the requirement is that we get feedback from the board community. We also are, in this resolution, changing CB local policy to address how the district will satisfy the notice requirement for federal grants and awards and approval required for grant plans. So we have Ms. Bettis and Mr. Bettis, not related, to share some information about ESSER.
Good evening, Board. Board President, Dr. Carmen. So a little bit of information on ESSER 3. I know we went over it on the board training, but I think today is more of the, just more information, more presentation of the actual, on my part, it's going to be the ESSER application. I know Ms. Betty is going to talk about the allowables and the plan for the spending. So as one of the requirements is we do have to present to board, and we do have to put information out there for the public. So this is serving as two things. We've already done the surveys, and with the plan that Ms. Alvarado presented, that will, a lot of the verbiage that we will take from there will be part of the application. So my next task now is going to be to write the narratives. They're not very long, but I will take a lot of the information that we have on the plan that Ms. Alvarado spoke of, and I also have the budget that Ms. Perez has provided that I know she will be presenting. So from here on out, on my part, is the application. It shouldn't take much. I should be done with it by the end of the week. Dr. Carmen will look it over, we'll approve it, and we'll submit it. Like we said before, this is not something that we're going to get denied. We can actually already start spending the money with the pre-award dates, but it is something that we wanted to present to you all. That way you all know what's coming. Like I said before, we're receiving $45 million over the next 3 years. On this first part of the application, it is an award of $30 million. And then there's a line. I'm not going to steal your thunder because I know she's going to kind of break down. If you have any questions about the application that I can answer, and if not, after Ms. Bettis speaks, if I can help answer any questions.
When is the deadline for this application? Is it the 15th? Or
No. We have until July, I think it was July 27th. 27th? Yeah, July 27th. But it will be submitted by next week, no later than next week. Mhm.
And just for clarity, Mr. Bettis, everything that we choose to spend money on with the ESSER funds is not taxpayer money. It's federal money.
It's federal money.
Okay.
Yeah.
For clarity.
I was going to say, it is taxpayer money.
It's actually taxpayer money. It is federal money, but we do pay federal income taxes.
Just not local tax.
It's not local. It's not local.
Not local tax.
And anything, I know Ms. Perez will review the allowables, but the way they're telling us is anything you can attach to the COVID pandemic, we can spend monies on, and anything to the 1 year, what they're called now, I guess the COVID slide or the summer slide that we used to call, but the COVID slide, we will be able to spend monies on. So it's kind of open. It's open for, it's a lot of money, so.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When we went to tour VMA and the high school last week, Dr. Carmen pointed out like all of the carpet, any type of things like that. Those are now known to carry the bacteria, so we can replace it all with
A lot of things that we weren't able to do before, like paying for HVAC hours, employees, supplies. We weren't able to do that out of a federal account. Now we will be able to. Another one of the big things that we kind of like about this one is usually on a federal grant, we have a 1 year period. With this one, it's 3 years. So now we can actually shop around for better pricing on 3-year contracts in regards to like the curriculum that we're purchasing or the supplementals that we're purchasing. So it helps us out too, saves us money.
This 1,200,000, is this still part of your presentation? The work, is that Ms. Vicky's?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll wait. Thank you.
So tall. Okay, so I'm going to go over, I will not go over each of these individually just because I don't think anybody wants to hear 15 items, but I'll go over the main points. Anything that has to do with COVID, anything that has to do with instructional loss because of COVID, disinfecting, sanitation, educational technology, support services, anything that addresses at-risk students. Maintenance, repairs, and upgrades to improve air quality. Anything having to do with continuity of employment or education. So those are and then anything that you can buy through ESSA, which are Mr. Perez's federal awarded grants, IDEA, Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, Carl Perkins, and CTE. This opens it up for a whole bunch of items that we can justify. So the list that you have before you, there's two things that we need to identify. First of all, the blue ones are the 20% that we need to meet as per the grant application. So those are highlighted in blue. The main one is going to be the rebound plan that Ms. Alvarado spoke about. The amount is approximately 2.1 million. So I have it broken down by what it's going to cost on an average year. Pre-award means that, like Mr. Perez said, we can already start spending those monies. So we're not going to be given that money until maybe a month from now at the very, very most. But we can go back all the way to March 2020 and reclassify those items that we paid out of local funds into those ESSER funds. So that is the supplanting part. The yellow those are the items that we plan on supplanting. So that means that all of those amounts in year one are going to, and in pre-award, year 2 and 3, all of those totals were going to come out of where they were originally coded in local funds, and they will be paid out of federal. So the SLT has been very diligent about identifying certain areas. We've reached out to our directors and see, okay, what is it that you feel that we can do? And this is the list that we came up with. So I won't go over numbers, but I will give you a general breakdown. The rebound plan, janitorial supplies, those numbers 6315, those are for me. That's all of the supplies in that account code will be coded to that. All of the HVAC budget, including personnel, will be coded back to ESSER funds as well as for the next 3 years after. We plan on buying extra buses, and the reason for buses is because two things. We have to make room for more students because of social distancing, but the other thing that's part of the ESSER plan allowable cost is that we have to be ready for an extended amount of time, for extended closures. So those buses will help with transporting food. Special ed buses, as well as small buses. The good thing about small buses is that it's not just bus drivers that can drive those. You can have a paraprofessional, a food service worker, somebody go and get their certification and their safety license, and they can drive those and they can take out those meals to the community. Campus buzzers and vestibules, those are the blocks in the campuses. We get that, put a thermal scanner, and we are doing our job as far as keeping everybody, making sure their temperatures are good, making sure that we're keeping those at bay, the sickly ones. Nurses pay, for obvious reasons, that will be completely supplanted from 199 into ESSER. HVAC additional projects. That one is just a very general description of some projects that may come up with the HVAC department. Student devices, I put $1 million at the end of year 3 because computers usually last about 3 years. They have a 3-year warranty. So at the end, we can upgrade those devices that we just got. The longevity pay that Dr. Cruz talked about, reclassifying our instructional coaches. Flooring, we plan on going out to every single campus and making sure that all of that carpeting is replaced with hardwood floors. Skyward, Region 1, and Frontline, and Blackboard NWEA, those are all instructional softwares that we need to utilize, and that is part of continuity of employment. Going back up, technology salaries will be reclassified to ESSER. The after-school program, anything that's paid out of 199 for our non-grant sites, those will be completely funded through there. We had a number of teachers that we should have not, how do I say this without, we were over from our teacher to student ratio. But because we can still need to take care of that loss of instruction and continuity of employment, we can pay through those, for those out of ESSER. E-learning, that is all of the programs that Ms. Ramirez talked about. Cafeteria tables, I put that one in there because, again, social distancing, we need to be able to offer the campuses more cafeteria tables so that they can socially distance. Campus allocations, that is a per pupil amount that each campus will get so that they have some say in how they use their monies for their purposes. And I think that's important that they have their own say in their campuses as well. Bus air conditioning, that's to any repairs that have been on the air conditioning units, as well as any kind of extra supplemental air quality control that we can do on any of those buses. And the last one is indoor multi-purpose facility cleaner. That is to be able to clean the turf. There is a COVID steamer that does take care of all of those contaminants for us. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question as far as the cafeteria table. How is that an allowable expense, and how is that related to anything that we would classify under COVID or any other?
We'd like to be able to social distance the students in the cafeteria, so if they have additional tables, then we can space them out a little bit more.
Okay.
Ms. Vicky, I have a quick question on that. Where do we have the space though inside the cafeteria to add more tables? I mean, like, what are we gonna do, add another room or something?
The stages, I'm thinking?
That is a good question. We haven't gotten to that part yet. This is still very
okay.
much in its infancy.
Just
So-
wondering.
Is it for specific campuses?
No, ma'am, it's in general. The level of discussion right now is very much in general. These are all estimates, not accurate numbers. It's not to the T, obviously. And if you noticed, at the bottom, the target numbers at year 2 should be at 30 million. And then on year 3, which is ESSER 2, is that correct, sir? We're hoping that it'll be approved by. Yes. That should be 15 million. We are currently at 38.9 million, but we still have to account for $2.7 million of indirect costs that comes to the district from that federal grant. So we are short maybe 2.5 million.
If I could just interject real quick, Mrs.
Yes, sir.
Pettis. It's all ESSER 3. They gave us the 2/3 allotment, and then if the state meets their maintenance of effort, we get the other third by year 3. But it's all ESSER 3.
Okay, yes. So the first part of the allotment is 30 million and the second is 15. So this is our breakdown. Pre-award, again, is for this current year. That's what we are going to reclassify those current expenses that were in 199 into ESSER 3. And then, again, by year, that's what our general plan is for right now. Any questions?
On the buses, I see here, bus air conditioning, are you all buying like special filters or anything like that for the buses? Because I'm thinking like, well, now that the kids are gonna be coming back to school, you're gonna have more kids in the bus and you can't social distance. So what does that bus air conditioning include?
So the bus air conditioning is for the repairs. The additional amounts that I have in, let me see, in the first year, the 50,000 is to address just that. If there are other filters, some kind of something that we can use in the buses to make sure that we are purifying that air as much as possible. I'm not a mechanic, but I'm sure somebody will come at us, and I'm hoping they do so that we can take care of our kids.
Any questions? Comments? Well, this is very intense. You all did a lot of work into this.
You'd be surprised how hard it is to spend 45 million.
I have one more before we move on.
Yes, sir.
Am I correct by saying that I saw a survey going out to parents in reference to what they felt the needs were within the district? And how did that go?
I don't have the results. We did have the survey that went to the students and to the parents and to our staff.
Right.
I don't have the results of the parents.
So was there like a needs assessment done with the leadership?
I think basically the way some of administrators across the valley were looking at this and across the state of Texas really was this is like a major windfall for all the districts. And so, you know, if we hit the lotto, what would we get? Well, we didn't hit the lotto, but we got ESSER 3. So these are things that we've normally done without, and now we can provide for our students.
And in regards to the needs assessment, well, as we go into the summer, we're always working on the district improvement plan before we get to next year. Usually around September, October, we're approving the new district improvement plan. One of the requirements on the district improvement plan is the needs assessment. So when we're looking at the application, we also have to make sure that our district improvement plans, needs assessment, all ties to ESSER. So when we do the application, they always want links to our plans and things like that. I have to add those, that way if somebody at TEA audits, they go and click and they say, oh, yep, their plan's there, their needs assessment's there, but we will have a needs assessment before next year.
I can give a quick overview of the survey results. We put it out, we had 1,167 people respond. Largest group was teachers, 468. Second largest group, parents, 350. We had 134 campus-based staff, 103 district-wide staff, 99 students. We asked them to tell us which resources we could provide to help or keep their grades up and make sure they were learning. The largest percentage indicated they wanted in-class small group instruction and or remediation. It was followed by live online tutoring. After-school tutorials were almost as close. So all these are ranked, all these things are in here. The two lowest were three lowest were summer school, learning academies during vacations and Saturday school, but there are still a percentage of people who said they would benefit from that. So we included all of those. We asked about their concerns returning to school. At that point, 64% said they felt safe returning to school. We asked what was difficult about the pandemic as it relates to education. The largest response was the remote instruction, followed by technology challenges, which I guess would be related to that probably. Some of the other things we looked at and asked what was most important for them as they return to face-to-face, safety. So we have all kinds of safety measures in this plan. Second was quality of education. So we have a fair amount budgeted into that as well. We asked when we return to 100% face-to-face, what would make the experience better. The largest percentage was to continue the use of COVID safety measures, masks, social distancing, et cetera. So a lot of safety measures in our plan. We even put in there, if there were those who wanted us to reduce the use of COVID safety measures to allow a more normal experience. That was the lowest percentage of respondents. So that's a quick overview, but yeah, we did have almost 1,200 people respond to that survey, and the elements of that survey are included in our spending plan.
So Dr. Carmen and Ms. Perez and Mr. Perez, where does this take us in the future in reference to money spent? We don't have any money allocated here with ESSER funds for the items such as PPE and things if that's needed in the future. So because we're supplanting in some of these areas and being able to reallocate these funds, we should have plenty to go around to be able to provide our students and staff with PPE. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And in the future, after all of the ESSER 3 is passed, we should see a huge increase in our fund balance from all of the supplanting that we're doing. So this is a very good time for us to build and be aggressive about that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This does meet the commissioner's recommendation. I think you recall at our conference with Region 1 that there was legislation on the table to require districts to put 40% back. That didn't pass. I guess it could in a special session, but it did not pass. But the recommendation from the commissioner was still to put at least 40% back through supplanting. Our goal was 50%, because again, we can have all these great things, these programs for 3 years, And if we put half that money away, we can do another 3 years if we choose to, or taper off the programs as needed. So we should be in very good shape, and this should help us financially.
Thank you.
Thank you
for this information. This has been very informative and very transparent. And one of the things when we ran for office, the community said they want transparency, and you all are doing a great job in providing transparency for them in with the ESSER funds and with the booklet that you used earlier also to provide us all that information, Ms. Perez. Thank you very much. And sir, thank you for the information you provided on how you're connecting all of this to the needs improvement also.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I cut you off, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Ms. Vicky.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
So this becomes an agenda item.
Sorry, my
2.6, review and discussion of legal representation agreement between San Benito CISD and O'Hanlon, I don't know how to say that name, Demuth and Castillo? I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name.
Mr. Castillo, excuse me.
All right, so we have Ben Castillo here with us from the law firm reference. Is that Demerith? Is that how you say that? O'Hanlon, Demerith, and Castillo?
Demarath. We ignore them, so it's okay.
As we've been discussing, there's a need for the school district to have additional attorney representation in addition to general counsel. Specifically, what we're looking at right here is representation, for example, when we have a grievance held at the administrative level, if the employee has an attorney present, the district has an attorney present, we still notify general counsel, and should that grievance go on to level 3, general counsel advises and represents the school board. O'Hanlon, in this case, if this is approved, represents administration, represents what happened in the lower level of the grievances. So it's necessary to have the two separate firms, and it also gives us the objectivity throughout the process. So if an employee has a concern, if we were to use the general counsel at every level, that same attorney is advising at each level, and when they get to the board, he's probably going to advise the exact same as he did in level 1 or level 2. So it gives us really good objectivity for our attorneys, or for our employees, and if it proceeds to level 3, again, you have to have the two separate attorneys there. So that's the primary purpose for asking the board to consider retaining the services of O'Hanlon,
Demarath and Castillo, there you go.
Demarath.
At this point, I've got some concerns that I don't want to discuss in open session, if you will. And so at this point, I'm going to say that we table this agenda item, not to say that it will not be placed on the agenda for our regular board meeting, but there are some concerns, and so I opt to table it, if we may.
Okay, so this 2.6 will not become an agenda item?
Since Mr. Castillo is here, I do have some questions. Is that okay?
We've already discussed that it's not going to be an agenda item, so there's no need for no more discussion. Am I correct, Mr. Weller? If not, we can discuss.
I think I was muted there. If the board president has the authority to table something, then it's tabled. Otherwise, there can be discussion.
Can you repeat, Mr. Weller? I did opt to table the item for further discussion. And so discussion ceases at this point?
If those are your committee rules,
I'm the chairperson, so I agree to table this item.
Are those our committee rules?
So, Mr. Willer, have you had a chance to familiarize yourself with our policies regarding our committees?
yes, sir. And generally, in terms of the board policies, I have, yes, sir.
Okay. So I just want to be clear. I know that when action is being taken, items can be tabled. Our committee meetings are informational in nature. We use them to generate an agenda, but there's no action on the board. So would that, the effect of being able to table an agenda item still be in place in a committee meeting?
And the agenda
You know-
does say review and discussion.
You know, I'm generally in favor of
Question.
dialogue and open meetings and discussion of things whenever there's a possibility to do so. On the same token, you know, typically if you're in a typical board meeting and you want to table an item, you're going to need a motion to table and a vote to table of a majority of the board members.
Mr. Weller, as well, just so you could know, I'm part of the committee for administrative, and Ms.
Yeah.
Cruz is not a member of that administrative committee. Does that make a difference?
Possibly under those conditions, you would have the ability to just table the item.
Possibly?
Yeah.
I mean, it
To give
says,
you a
rev-
specific answer, I'm gonna need to look at your committee rules specifically.
it says review and discussion on the agenda. Mr. Moreno said he had some discussion, but he'd rather not do it in the open meeting. And I just have a question for the open meeting.
I'm not sure you're gonna find a specific rule on that point. I mean, I would just generally recommend that you allow the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Castillo, so you were on, I just have a quick question. So you helped us with the DIA investigations previously, correct?
No, ma'am.
So this is a brand-new contract?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I know that we were on the previous agenda for our contract to be ended, but it had just been executed, so.
Okay.
We were hired for a week and then got dismissed the week after.
Okay, no problem. So on that contract that you had and then was terminated, I believe that the wording was that you could be paid up to $50,000, correct? Because that was the limit previously?
If I remember correctly, ma'am, I think that that contract was for a flat fee, and I believe it was $4,000 a month, so $48,000. So
Okay, but that doesn't mean, because I know that the concern previously was that we were paying your firm that amount of money throughout the year.
we didn't bill that. We didn't bill 1 cent of that. The
Okay.
only work that we've done for y'all, we've done a couple of trainings, and we probably haven't billed more than $5,000 to San Benito CISD in the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so then the concern from previously that we were paying an egregious amount of money to these different law firms is not a concern at all, because there's no way that you or any other law firm went towards that.
I could only speak for my law firm.
Okay, for your law
And I could tell
firm.
you that, well, we did not make $50,000 from San Benito CISD last year.
Even if that's what the contract was, there's no way because you
It was
had-
for a week.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And if I may, just to clarify further, Ariel, Ms. Cruz, I don't believe that any law firm would charge us for services not performed. So that goes with what you're saying.
That-
It was up to, when they engaged in the contract, it was up to $48,000, $4,000
Yes,
a
sir.
month if the services were rendered, but not otherwise.
Yes,
So-
sir.
okay,
And
that-
Mr. Board President, if I may, the only services that we have performed in the last couple of years have been trainings to your staff, and the cost has been minimal to San Benito CISD.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for being here tonight.
Of course, and if you guys need anything else, just let us know, and we'll be here.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you for
So at
coming
this
out.
point, we table agenda item 2.6. Any more questions or concerns? 3.1? Okay, so then at this point, meeting is adjourned at 9:04 PM. Have a great night.
Thank you, Board.